Hello, everybody. I don't know why my hands are up like this. It's April 27th, and we're doing government and security news today.
I can't even see your hands.
Yeah, we can't. Your box is too small. Some people have complained that you need a bigger presence here, but that just encourages you not to come to the office.
Yeah, it's getting to be time. I gotta come back.
I gotta get my vaccine, and then I can do it. Vaccinated attitude.
Yeah, that's something I'm like, I know I should, but at the same time. Anyway, let's not think about bad things, because I've got an exciting new segment for the Level 1 News, and these two don't know anything about it, but you're going to love it. It is the Level 1 Diet Orange Soda Review.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so kind.
This week is
you
Fago.
Do care.
Oh
no.
It was in the car. I drive erratically.
Oh, it's doing the frozen thing.
I tried to keep it cold during the trip. You didn't even check the bouquet.
You gotta smell it first.
No.
Examine the fizz. You don't like it?
So your baseline is Crush.
Orange Crush, yeah.
So where does this rank?
So it has hints of Orange Crush, but it's very watery. It definitely doesn't taste as carbonated as
I feel that way about their cola.
As Orange Crush, yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of carbonation there, but I mean, obviously because it sprayed me. But it's not at this level of orange. I would expect it to, peg the orange taste. I mean, this is basically nuclear waste levels of orange, and it's not.
Wow, a big failure from the Fago brand.
It's been a long time since I've had Orange Crush, so I'm going to finish it.
Now you're part of the family.
I would like to say that we'd do another one next week, but Sunkist is the only one I think I can reliably find.
That one is sugary.
But yeah, you mentioned you've had that.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe we still review it.
Yeah,
you like orange LaCroix.
Do you want to see another?
Yeah, it might be worth revisiting because remember they changed the formula and all that stuff.
I don't remember because I don't keep up with orange soda news like you do.
I have a bot to notify me when they change the formula.
But I do try to keep up with the government news, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. And here's one that just makes absolutely no sense. Because now, remind me, are they not going out of business?
They're doing very well, but also simultaneously going out of business.
And yet, they have all this money to throw at a program like this?
The Postal Service is running a covert operations program that monitors American social media. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and like, the article writer didn't do the homework here. This is part of some convoluted federal grant program where somebody said, we need you to do this in order to get money. And the Postal Service was like, what? We need to monitor people's social media? That doesn't make sense.
Now, they are not an enforcement arm, obviously. So all they do when they find something on social media is hand it over to the real authorities.
Yes.
So, again...
Was it the Postal Service was allowed to do something a normal federal agency wouldn't be allowed to do? Because that's what it smells like.
That could be a big part of it. And it could also help them correlate people to physical addresses, maybe?
Yeah, isn't it crazy how there's always a convoluted reason for this kind of thing, and it takes us to suss it out by just thinking about it?
I don't think we found it. I still have no idea why they would do this.
Yeah,
I was imagining the scenario of like, you order something online, and then they check your social media, the post office does, and they're like, oh, tack another day on.
Here's a dark timeline for you. All of a sudden, the Postal Service employees are all asked to carry these black box phones that they never ring and they never actually turn on. What those actually are devices that are running Linux, capturing all of the wireless data around you. It's getting your MAC address, the name of your SSID, and a lot of other information, as well as like the geolocation. What an incredible database that would be for federal agencies to have of literally everything. And it would only take overnight.
And if you could pull an IP from that social post somehow.
Yes.
You could tie that right in.
Yeah. Isn't that neat? See how that would work? Or if you could run a piece of JavaScript to get the MAC address, which is a thing that's allowed. That's why Apple obscures it.
That would be tough for them to do because they're looking at it after the fact. But if they found some sort of like database that Facebook was keeping that they could correlate from the dark web, yeah, there's a lot they could do there. So that's disgusting. And we've been talking a lot lately about the corporate tax. And a lot of the big names are weighing in and they're saying, you know what? Yeah, maybe go ahead and tax us because you know what? We deserve it. But what they know is that the corporate tax that's being talked about right now wouldn't touch most of their money because most of their money is not in this country. And thus,
big tech, 100 billion foreign profit hoard targeted by tax plan. This also includes the capital gains thing, doesn't it?
This is the offshore stuff.
Yeah. So, well, we've got the story on the double Irish sandwich later. That kind of thing is the kind of thing that they're targeting, and the St. Kitts and Nevis thing.
If only this had been sorted to accentuate that immediately afterwards.
Oh yeah, Google used the double Irish to shift 75.4 billion in profits out of Ireland. So our lawmakers are looking at this and they're saying, "What is going on? Why is this happening?"
Now this is not our lawmakers, obviously. The Irish lawmakers love this because they end up getting a ton of money. Not personally, although probably somehow personally.
Well,
Yeah.
remember when the Irish government actually went to bat on Apple's behalf to say, no, please don't make Apple leave our country. They give us a lot of money. Yeah,
the EU doesn't like this. But Ireland's like, bro, this is all we got. Come on.
And potatoes.
Irish engagement challenge.
So
My Fago could use some Irish engagement challenge. That was a joke about alcoholism.
oh, you want to put alcohol? I thought maybe that would improve the carbonation somehow. But anyway, if you really want to get at the big tech company's money, you have to get it from Bermuda or wherever because they ain't keeping it here.
St. Kitts and Nevis. Woo!
And one of the government organizations that has been striking out recently and extracting money from these monsters is the FTC. And here's a real weird one from the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court slashes the FTC's power to seek monetary awards. So you know how the FTC's been doling out record stuff lately? And all of a sudden, Ajit Pai, he wasn't around to see his plan, but that was all I could think about as I was reading this was like, holy crap, that was the other side of Ajit Pai's plan. It's like, oh, the FTC can enforce this, blah, blah, blah. But he knew this was coming down the pike.
Do you think somebody walked into his corner office at the Verizon or wherever he is now and just put an envelope on his desk? It's like, good job, buddy.
He got a note to go to a seedy hotel at sundown, and there was just a guy sitting in a chair who's not illuminated, and all you could see was his cigarette. And he's like, "This is the plan," and it's like, "Oh, thank you, Lord, sir."
So yeah, that's a weird one. They tried to give some reasons as to why, and the Supreme Court, it was kind of a technicality. They thought they were overreaching based on the wording of the old law that enabled them to do this. And they said that Congress should act to change the law. But I don't know if there's much chance of that.
I don't know. We'll see.
But to go from a terrible, terrible ruling to one that is probably at least has the heart in the right place, I don't know if it'll actually accomplish anything. We really need something like this.
Yeah.
Fourth Amendment is not for sale, would ban Clearview and warrantless location purchases. I looked into the meat of this. It's not actually going to do that.
But it's called that.
It sounds good. Everybody should pass it. But there's a lot of loopholes in it as it is right now.
So obviously this has to do with ICE and border protection and the driver's license data and all that stuff. We just see so much of that now. They're just buying all their data, which is crazy because why are we paying them?
They should be able to just get a warrant and get it for free. It's like, oh, no, then we really do have Fourth Amendment things. It's a technicality.
But if we're going to buy it all, let's hire a software company to do that, not a bunch of bureaucrats.
Or, the aforementioned, Postal Service, that'll cut the costs nationwide by orders of magnitude. You just ask them to carry a rooted phone with a custom distro, and then you've got this incredible surveillance apparatus.
Maybe we should hire them to correlate all this data as well. Let's just put everything under the post office.
Postal Service. The dark.
I don't really feel qualified for this, guys. And it's like, you'll be fine.
We need the dystopian novel where it's like the Postal Service becomes the Ministry of Truth. They'd probably do a better job.
Well, perhaps we could give the Postal Service the job of protecting our infrastructure. Because one thing we know for sure, our infrastructure is at risk, and we need a plan to save it.
The U.S. unveils a plan to protect the power grid from foreign hackers. And if you dive into that plan, You'll be very sad.
Unfortunately, we have the good old Bloomberg paywall because I was going to accentuate, I think in the second paragraph, how are they going to do this? By putting government software on all the electrical monitoring stations.
There are some good things in there. Like they're going to try to encourage and offer grants for the things that I've said, like offering money to basically have third-party experts come in. The problem is that a lot of the third-party experts are not equipped currently to deal with the insanity and bureaucracy of government contracting. There are a few, but not a lot. Mostly you're down to companies like Palantir, and it's like, oh yeah, Palantir extends your reach into the U.S. power grid. That seems like a good idea.
I don't like that.
So the NSA will be monitoring your smart meter very soon. Congratulations. And we know one thing about our audience. You're not going to live without power.
You'll live, but not well. You'll not thrive.
Nah, they'd take their own lives within months. They couldn't live with it. China is being blamed for a massive hack, just as we talk about all these threats. But this time, it has to do with getting inside the security apparatus to prevent this kind of thing. Brilliant move.
China behind another hack as U.S. cybersecurity issues mount. Oh, no. This was Pulse Secure VPN. So anybody that's using Pulse Secure VPNs, they got a 0 day, which means that if you have that and you haven't updated in like the last week, it's already very bad for you. You're going to have to do a lot more work. It may have already been too late.
Yikes. It really adds insult to injury that the name secure is in the product.
I forgot to add the story for this, but Cisco it'll probably be in next week's story because there's a 0 day out for it as a result of this, and that'll be the story. But Cisco was facing something similar, and in some of their obsolete gear, they're not offering a patch unless they backpedaled. Initially, they were just like, oh, yeah, you got I was like an RV310 or something. So, yeah, you got that. Well, look, that's been end of life for a while. We're not fixing it. Buy a new one.
There's an upgrade incentive.
Yeah, away from Cisco.
In New York, of course, the economy has shifted from restaurants to delivery. And the entire workforce, I was kind of surprised to learn this, but it seems like all of the mostly South American descent restaurant workforce shifted completely into delivery, almost, except for the ones that were still cooking the food. And this wave of new delivery drivers has created a new opportunity for one part of the population
to exploit the other part of the population. That's the joke, right? New York City gig workers are organizing against rampant e-bike theft and assault, and also murder. There were some people that were carjacked and somebody else got stabbed and died, and the New York police are just like, meh.
They are really deprioritizing those kinds of crimes now.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit terrifying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they get their e-bikes stolen a lot. They get mugged a lot. They get hit by cars once in a while. And
murdered, the occasional murder.
I don't think the murder is because they're a delivery driver. I think that's just an opportunity attack, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like you can steal the bike or whatever, yeah. Yeah,
so they're saying that they need the government to protect them. I don't know exactly if they have a plan on how that works, but they are terrified.
Concealed carry is legal in New York. That would put a stop to it. Don't you think?
I would say there is nobody in New York carrying a gun who isn't doing it because of a security or a law enforcement job who has a net worth of less than $1 million. Because the tape that you have to go through to get it requires like 6 lawyers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
So probably not the delivery drivers then?
Probably not. The non-English speaking delivery drivers.
Can you get the Assassin's Creed thing? Is that legal? Like where you like somebody like and then if
that's an automatic knife. Nope.
What about like pepper spray?
I think they have in the city. You can have almost nothing.
Yeah.
Really?
In this upstate, you can get away with a little bit more. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. And they lost the case because they sued. I think the Supreme Court ruled on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Foxconn'd, a little bit further up from New York and like over that way a little bit, is the new Foxconn'd plant in Minnesota. If you'll remember, when Trump came into office, this was one of his big talking points. He's like, We're bringing in jobs, and look at the jobs I'm bringing into this state. And I was like, you know what? That's a lot of jobs. You got to give it up for everything else he says that wasn't true. That came true. But wait.
Foxconn mostly abandons $10 billion Wisconsin project touted by Trump. So they're still going to have 1,400 employees. It's still going to be a Foxconn factory there.
That's down from what, 10,000?
Yeah, and that's probably just so they don't have to pay back the tax incentives they got, which I think were up front, weren't they?
And they were supposed to make state-of-the-art screens. And then they were like, well, maybe we'll just make some other screens there. And now I don't even know if they know what they're going to make there.
No.
Probably just people sitting around getting a check, right?
Oh, $1,400, and then, 1,400 employees, a couple $1 billion. The math works.
Wow.
And if that is a cautionary tale on letting big tech come into your country and make promises, perhaps this makes a little bit more sense. Although I would say to everybody suffering from the chip shortage and everybody excited about the M1 and where we might be going, hates to see this headline because it's just going to slow everything down.
UK invokes national security to investigate Nvidia's ARM deal. I think Jensen was anticipating this because some of his comments at GDC last week, he said that this is probably going to be complete by like 2023, which is probably enough to satisfy the UK. I really don't think what Nvidia has in mind for ARM as it exists in the UK is going to be all that disruptive initially. So they'll probably get through these regulatory hurdles, but probably not without a few concessions.
Yeah, a couple of more people want to taste.
Yeah.
That's what that headline should be.
Yeah.
So, figure out who it is, and figure out how much you got to give them, and then go forward. That's how it works.
It is crazy that that's how it works.
That's how it works when the government gets power over business. Also in the Bank of England, following China's move, they have announced and yet don't have any plan or actual service.
They had a couple of sound bites.
They just wanted to talk about this, I guess.
The Bank of England considered digital money plan, and they said a £10 note is equal to 10 pounds of our cryptocurrency, and it will always be the case.
So why bother?
Half the fun of cryptocurrency is its wild roller coaster of emotion as it swings wildly 20% in a day.
Right now we're swinging low.
Sweet chariot.
Back up the truck. Load it up. That's what they tell you to do in times like these. I'm not telling you that. In space, it doesn't matter where you're from. We all live as the human race in space.
And no one can hear you scream.
And we love each other. And we totally don't poke holes in the space station just to try to stir up international controversy, right?
Russian mulls withdrawing from the International Space Station after 2024. But don't worry, they're going to have their own space station with blackjack and hookers, it sounds like.
I can't wait for, space nationalism. That's going to be so much fun.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. And you know who's going to be at the front and center of that? And probably it's going to motivate him to make even more unsafe decisions? Elon Musk.
Ooh.
He's going to spend the lives of astronauts to gain superiority.
It's like, well, you want to be an Amazon warehouse worker or take a chance with Elon Musk?
You think the skill set will transfer over?
It's a real life Kerbal Space program. I mean, he's just going to strap you in, and if you survive,
you might come back. Well, big tech is obviously under the crosshairs, and for a long time they've been saying we got to do something, but the question is what. And now maybe we have a little bit more of an idea of what that something is.
U.S. House Committee approves blueprint for big tech crackdown. There is a little bit of talk in this about Section 230 and attacking Section 230.
Well, the Republican, every time the Democrats are like, we must split them up, the Republicans are like, yeah, we need to repeal 230.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
There's not a lot of agreement.
You guys aren't talking about the same thing here. You're just spitting out talking points.
Yeah. So.
Who knows? I'm sure that there will be something that happens. I don't know if it'll be good for the people.
Well, Jeff Bezos is super on board as long as he's steering it. So he's been, on board for that.
Yeah, which is...
That's the big if.
The worst possible situation is basically what you're describing there. And that seems to be where we're going.
Lex Luthor is working with politicians directly.
And he is orders of magnitude smarter than the collection of them.
Didn't in the Superman comics, didn't that when that happened, it drove Superman to the brink of insanity?
Lex Luthor became president.
And then Superman was just like, what do I do?
I don't remember exactly how he reacted. I mean, I'm sure he had some problems with it.
He organized at the grassroots level and protested, and that did nothing.
Proctorio. Does your brain string replace Proctorio with Factorio while you're reading these?
No, it keeps replacing it with proctologist.
I was kind of going like Wendell's direction as well.
If you put the word proctologist in there, that'd be a much more hilarious headline. But Proctorio is the software. If you're in a university right now, you're probably doing online classes. Proctorio is it's a browser extension that is supposed to be anti-cheat and for test taking. It maintains that you're staring at the screen and not doing anything fishy. A lot of people have claimed that it has some big shortfalls. So big that one person actually looked into the code because it is a browser plugin and said, hey, look what it does. And they said, oh my God, you're right. We're going to fix this. We're going to make this better. I'm kidding, of course. They would never do that.
Proctorio sued for using DMCA to take down a student's critical tweets. They, of course, said that, looking at the source code of a browser extension, which is just JavaScript, is a violation of their copyright.
Not looking at it, tweeting it.
Well, it's little tiny pieces and then commentary.
Even though it's publicly available.
Yeah. They do that with videos, too. There's somebody in Canada that they're suing for posting links to their own YouTube channel where the links that they sent the links in email to people that were considering buying the software. It really does seems to me like a lot of really, really shady behavior on that company's part.
And why, as a company, would you be so embarrassed of that code? Well, because the things that he lays out, it kind of supports. So, yeah, it seems like a lot of universities are dropping this software because of these things, and especially because of the racism angle.
Yeah.
And I think they're desperately trying to stop that bleeding.
Well, it's probably not going to work out for them, ultimately.
And do you remember back in the wild west of the internet when squatting on domains was actually lucrative?
Yeah, typo domains and stuff.
Or just, you'd sit around and be like, what is the next thing somebody's going to try to invent?
And then just put some ads on that domain.
Just let me go get that domain. Well, you just try to sell it to them whenever they get
Yeah.
it. And that practice has not ended, but it's much more difficult these days because so many people are trying to do it. However, if you're lucky, you could get a really big fish in the domain squatting world.
Argentine version of Google falls into the wrong hands, leading to search engine's temporary collapse. Oh, whoops. Is this a preview of what's going to happen when regulators get their hands on Google?
Well, we gave away ICANN, didn't we? But I did not quite understand. I don't think they went into enough details here. They said that they took it back and then it had not actually expired. It was the registrar that made the mistake.
Yeah.
But what did they do for the guy who bought it?
Nothing.
Did he just get a refund for the... Also, we're overpaying for domains. In Argentina, a domain registration, even for google.ar or whatever the thing is, $3.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot of money in Argentina.
That's like 4,000, whatever their currency is. But I still don't think it's a lot of money. It's just a big number. So yeah, that's embarrassing. And it shows you how, like, the structure of the world, if a giant tech company versus an individual, it's not even a contest.
Well,
the rules don't matter.
There's the aspartame headache.
Well, I mean, what's Crush sweetened with?
Oh, yeah. Not as much, probably. Carbonated water, citric acid, aspartame. It's ingredient number 3.
Will you tell me oranges isn't the number 1 ingredient?
Potassium benzoate, potassium citrate.
That's
There it
clearly
is. Modified
very
cornstarch, natural flavor. Glycerol albuterate.
I love that stuff.
Can't you, like, cook steaks with
Can you
that?
get that organic?
Free range,
Yeah.
Free range albuterate.
cage free. Well, moving on to the security section, there is a new tactic from ransomware gangs. That's the word I'm looking for. They, one thing they know is that they can infect you, and they know that they can extort you, but they don't know if you'll pay. And what happens if you don't pay? They don't gain anything from it. They might screw you over and encrypt everything, but they don't get anything. So how can you find another way to monetize this?
Ransomware gang wants to short the stock price of their victims. A bold new strategy. This is actually, like, there's a lot of ransomware news this week. It's a lot of really interesting stuff.
Yeah, big security section this week.
Organized crime. I think we're seeing a bigger trend here, and I don't know if it's Google or Russia or China that's driving it, but it seems like organized crime is becoming kind of a wing of the intelligence services. And maybe this is true of America. Maybe this is always this way with the CIA, because you look at the Iran-Contra affair and it's like it was kind of this, but not for malware. And so it's basically a deal. It's like, the Russian intelligence service will work with the criminals as long as the criminals avoid targeting Russian businesses. Seems like a good deal.
I've often thought, and I'm sure I'm not alone here, that if you just break it down into like study the anatomy of a criminal organization, like organized crime or a street gang or something like that, and then compare that to a breakdown of the anatomy of a police force or an alphabet agency, there's not a lot of difference.
Yeah, Freakonomics, they had that with the guy that kept meticulous records of his crack dealing, and it was fascinating.
Yeah, so not surprising that every once in a while they might work together. Remember when He-Man and Skeletor sometimes would work together?
Oh, that was just for Christmas.
No, they had to work together against King Hiss as well.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh.
Skeletor wanted just mild chaos, but King Hiss actually wanted to end the world and then there would be nothing, something like that.
No, he wanted Skeletor's spot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so totally self-serving. Excellent storyline in Masters Universe. Go check that out.
We need a live-action movie with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
He would be a good He-Man, actually.
I thought he was considering political office.
He could easily be president at this point. That's the world we're living in.
That's crazy.
Well, cell phone hacking, we know, is big business. And Cellebrite is probably at the forefront of it. They have contracts with all these governments, all these law enforcement agencies, and they make these big claims like, hey, any iPhone, bring it to us or just buy our device. You'll get right into it. So you would think a company that is that aware of security and the risks of poor security would themselves take security very seriously.
No, this is the most delightful story of the entire week.
This is, you'd be wrong about that. And oh my God, this is such a fun read.
Signal CEO hacks Cellebrite iPhone hacking device used by cops. You gotta go watch the video. The video is amazing. But this is the thing that, he's like, oh, we don't have the iPhone password. You plug this in, this thing like figures it out and copies your phone. The problem is that this software has a lot of stuff in it to index and analyze and process the data in your phone. What happens if you turn your data in your phone into a malicious payload? I'm not talking about like putting a virus on your phone. I'm actually talking about like constructing a movie to exploit bugs that were in old FFmpeg libraries, which could then take over the system. Well, that's exactly what the CEO of Signal has done here, which is really interesting. And so if you have one of these files on your phone and they slurp it up, it's going to do very naughty things to the machine. So I have a feeling that a lot of files are going to make their way to the internet, which is going to create a lot of interesting issues.
And if you were able to get a hold of one of these units, then you could do a lot of testing and you could probably craft a file that instead of just destroying it, which I think is what his does, it could just return false.
Yeah, so it looks good.
Phone's clean. Can't get anything off of it. This guy definitely paid his taxes. So he also said, he said two hilarious things in the story. The first one was they asked him, they were like, well, do you have one of these? And he was like, oh, it's the craziest thing. I saw one fall off a truck. It was just a box that fell off a truck. And we opened it up and it's like, oh my God, it's a Stingray. Or whatever the Cellebrite thing is called that hacks the iPhone. So that's probably a lie. The other hilarious thing he said is like, well, this is totally unrelated to anything we talked about today. But in the future, who knows what kind of files might be in the Signal file system. So he's basically saying eventually Signal will destroy Cellebrite readers.
Which is glorious.
Yeah, that guy, he should get the Nobel Prize for that. That's fantastic. The story is weird. Did you get the impression that they put Toshiba in the headline?
Yes.
Just to clickbait us?
Yes.
Come on, Bloomberg.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be better
We're
than that.
not paying for the subscription for that.
It's quality journalism. That's what you can pay for.
Hackers target iconic Japanese brands like Toshiba, but actually get rival Hoard.
I don't know. Is it like Hoya or something like that? Yeah.
Probably Hoya.
A lot of ransomware gangs are targeting these big electronics companies because they'll pay, and their stuff is, dependent on just-in-time manufacturing, and with the current global situation, they're probably not doing well financially. So, yeah, there's some security holes there.
And they have not yet, I think, reported whether or not they're going to pay it, right?
Right, yeah. Toshiba was able to contain the issue. Hoya was not.
If you want some ransomware investing, maybe buy Toshiba right now. Although they did point out in the ransomware investing thing that ransomware rarely affects the stock price for very long, if at all.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting.
When it comes to security research, it's a topic we talk about a lot. And there's this big argument that if you are doing security research, you are often violating policies and terms of service. And a lot of the people who run the software companies are like, no, this is too much of a risk. We can't allow this. Now, the research community is saying, no, you must allow it, because how else are we going to point out all the terrible things that you're doing wrong? And it's a big debate. I would mostly agree with the research side. What do you think?
I don't agree with their methodology.
Well, because you're previewing as usual.
Yeah.
But in this case, this was terrible. This was absolutely a stupid thing to do, and the Linux people are right in this case, I would say.
Linux bans the University of Minnesota for sending buggy patches in the name of research. So some researchers created a bunch of patches and said, hey, we ran our tool on this source code, and it found some potential null pointer vulnerabilities, blah, blah, blah. And so here are the fixes from the tool. And in some cases, the maintainers were like, okay. And some of the patches were accepted. I guess, well, the researchers say that none of the patches were accepted, but some of the Linux kernel mailing list traffic seems to suggest that some of them were accepted. But all of the patches were reverted after the researchers published a paper that was like, gullible Linux kernel maintainers will accept anything, even stuff that introduces buggy code.
See, the benefits you get from identifying that failure, how does that compare to the damage you do by putting bad code in the Linux kernel?
Yeah. The damage is that the University of Minnesota will no longer be allowed to contribute any code to the Linux kernel.
You can follow the email back and forth, and the guy from the Linux side of things, he seemed to be pretty level-headed about it.
Yeah.
And he was just like, listen, we know what you're up to now, so obviously we're not going to let you keep doing it. Okay, you made your point, but now you're out.
There's also the fact that it was an educational institution. Theoretically, there's an ethics review board on this kind of thing. So if you get patches from some random person on the internet, that's a little different than this is the Department of Computer Engineering at the University of Minnesota. Or whatever.
Universities should be. We should have a system where that trust is never threatened. On purpose? Come on.
Yeah, well, the ethics review board exists for this reason. So, but by banning the entire university, the kernel will ensure that the deviants will be dealt with.
Unless they transfer. What if you keep hopping universities just to keep?
But think of all the good press for the university now. Think of enrollment.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to bring a lot. Well, maybe a couple of people, but not a whole lot. Did you see any new information in this one?
No.
I'm cutting it. I'm cutting this one, Krista.
Yeah.
And here is there was a lot of security stories this week, and I thought about cutting this one because there are no details. Did you find any more details?
There's no details.
No one knows anything, so just be afraid, I guess.
Google Chrome hit by another mysterious zero-day attack. It's patched in 90.0.4430.85, and we know that there's a 0 day because there's a 0 day going around, but if you don't have that version, you need to patch it. The problem is that downstream things also need to be updated.
They describe it only as type confusion. So
in the V8 JavaScript engine.
Who knows? Just be afraid. The spying that we talked about earlier in terms of like criminal organization or government agency. That could be like one of those, remember those old web games where you had to choose between two things that look similar, like a croissant or a cat curled up? We could have the same thing here. Was this done by a ransomware gang or was it done by a government agency?
MI5 warns of spies using LinkedIn to trick staff into spilling secrets. The idea with this is basically you got your resume on LinkedIn. It's like, oh, I see you work for so-and-so company. Hey, so what do you do there? And people will happily tell you all about it because, you know, you're the hiring manager for another company. You know about confidentiality. And in fact, it's not.
Krista, rate this Photoshop.
I was going to say, this is a horrific image, and I reacted viscerally when I saw it. It's a pretty good Photoshop. They could have done a little bit better job with the healing brush on the terrifying blank face, but wow.
I feel like the blank face should have some more like moles and blemishes and stuff to make it more believable.
Yeah.
Still, I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
They could have put a shadow too to like indicate that the face was in front of the blank spot, but weird
Krista,
image.
I'm cutting this next one because it's the Pulse story again.
It's a weird sort this week, chat.
And as we were saying, ransomware teams, not only are they trying to find a way in, but they're trying to find the best way to present their case to their victims to ensure payment. And timing can be a big part of that.
Ransomware gangs try to extort Apple hours ahead of the spring-loaded event. This is because one of their partners, Quanta, was hacked. Quanta makes a lot of stuff, there's a crazy amount of stuff.
And Quanta did not play ball.
They did not.
So what do? You go up. You ask to speak to the manager.
And Tim Cook's like, we're looking into it. But this is going to cost them dearly because Apple is very vindictive.
So they have the schematics and they're going to release them. And I don't think Apple's going to pay them.
Quanta's usually pretty good about leaking the repair manuals to repair organizations too, which is nice. It annoys Apple, but Quanta's really good at their job.
Which is another reason Apple's been looking to replace them desperately. We have been hearing a lot about, the sale of driver's license information. If you get a driver's license, and we all pretty much have to, you can bet that some government organization is selling your information to some shady tech company. But that is not the only way that your driver's license is threatened.
Geico admits fraudsters stole customers' driver's license numbers for months. It was scraping. Geico is like, they're just scraping. And it's like, did you get that Facebook memo about scraping? Because we're trying to make scraping not a thing, but it's totally a thing.
But why are our driver's licenses available to be scraped?
Because they were sold. We bought them fair and square in a database.
They point out that driver's license is the number one resource you need in order to steal unemployment from somebody. And that's an easy thing to get right now.
Yeah, it's like if you've gotten mysterious correspondence from the government, you might want to check.
Google's FLoC is now a reality.
We covered that before. That is Google's replacement for cohort cross-domain third-party cookie tracking.
Federated list of cohorts or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And it's supposed to protect you, and it's supposed to make everything better. And, of course, it's supposed to defeat the kind of tracking that Apple and Facebook love to do.
Instead of tracking that you individually are an Apple enthusiast, you're put in the Apple enthusiast bucket with all other Apple enthusiasts.
And that bucket is disgusting. But I think that they planned for the world to be a little more accepting of the FLoC. Which is ironic because it's called FLoC and that's a group, but there's no group.
WordPress may automatically disable Google FLoC on websites. So you can opt out right now. I mean, Google's probably just going to ignore this as a result of this. But, WordPress's power, sadly, interestingly, powers like 55-ish% of the internet for web pages, which is scary.
The lower 55%.
Agreed.
So, yeah, we'll also have some future stories about how popular FLoC is.
It's not.
Spoiler, yeah, not at all. One company really likes it.
Hey, guys, can we get all this everywhere? We're opening the standard so everybody can support it. And everybody's just like, do we need this? I don't think we need this.
And finally, throughout the years that the internet has existed, we've always had companies who have tried to introduce parental software to limit your children to only the safe parts of the internet. And that has always been a very stupid idea because it's impossible to filter that list unless you go in the other direction. You have to do, what is it? It's an allow list and a block list now?
An allow list.
An allow list. So the only way you can do it is to say yes and not say no. And Microsoft seems to have finally realized this. Now here's the engagement challenge. You already know, but they don't. If you're going to make a list of websites that are okay for kids, how many would you put on that list?
Microsoft Edge adds a kids mode for parents worried about their shared devices. If I were doing it, it would probably be like 2.
The answer is 70.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's only 70.
70 sites.
Anything that you have access to like other people, anything that's sort of social, it's not safe because people can be terrible and post terrible things. You can't trust other people.
It would have been 71 if Club Penguin was still around.
Nah, Club Penguin. Well, you got banned pretty quick from Club Penguin if you posted anything bad. But
how do you think that other websites are lobbying hard to get on the list?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Krista, I completely forgot. We have to go back and do another government story.
Oh yeah.
Krista added this one at the end, and Krista, I'll just throw it to you.
This is just a tweet that sent my anxiety into overdrive earlier this week. This is from U.S. Strategic Command. Posture statement preview. The spectrum of conflict today is neither linear nor predictable. We must account for the possibility of conflict leading to conditions which could rapidly drive an adversary to consider nuclear use as their least bad option.
I assume this is in response to the stuff going on in the Middle East right now.
Could also
See,
be China.
I assumed Russia.
Could definitely be China. You know, there was a bunch of our boats in the middle of the sea there in the Philippines, and then, there was some stuff that happened with that wasn't reported anywhere.
Although when it comes to nuclear war, I don't know what the current belief system is in terms of like how many would get through in a full-scale volley from a major country.
All of them.
But their population density versus ours seems like there would be a huge disadvantage there.
Yeah.
Because there would be people, the old quote about a rifle behind every blade of grass, until Biden gets his way. And we would be out, in the middle of Montana somewhere. You're not going to nuke that. It's not efficient.
The radiation will get us, though.
If you patterned it correctly, but again, that's how many get through the missile shield.
What missile shield?
You can't count on. We have a missile shield.
That's a PR thing. That's not real.
No, we know that works because Israel's been testing it for the last 3 decades.
I don't think that's going to work against the missile that, what was it? It's like 6 times the speed of sound and it moves in a zigzag pattern.
The Russian one. Yeah. The one that goes into space.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be tough.
What, Krista?
The comments on this are pretty fantastic as well. People are like, is this like the toddler tweeting again? What's happening? Why are you posting this? Also, some people were like, what are my chances of surviving if a nuke falls on me? And it's like, there is no survival. You're not going to make it.
You don't want to think about survival in that case. You want to think about quality of life, which would be near zero. Be some very unhappy people.
So stare directly into the nuclear fire.
Krista, give us an unbridled nuclear fear goodbye.